All right, we're about to go live, y'all. All right, we are good. So I want to welcome everybody. We just recently decided to do a pop-up Zoom interview with Russ Brown. And let me tell you why. So for those of you all who don't know Russ Brown, him and I have been friends for some undetermined amount of years now. It's like over 15. And when I first came into the industry, I did a lot with promotions. And Russ was one of the people in DC that did a lot of promotions as well. His company went on to do some really big things, and they still do events. However, it taught Russ the lay of the land in a way nobody else knew. And so, you know, you think, why did you bring up the promoter piece when we're talking about real estate? Because when you're doing promotions in DC, one of the things you have to do is find out the best places to host people. You find out locations nobody knows about. You're doing a lot of scouting. What that really was doing for Russ was training him on how to be an amazing real estate agent for his clients, because he knows parts of DC that you won't know. He knows things about DC that you won't know. So when we talk about, you know, what's your unique value proposition, Russ knows DC better than most. And so you find agents who relocated here just to sell property, they don't know DC. You know, you find people who, you know, they came to DC to relocate to have, you know, the life they want. They don't know the atmosphere, the environment, the attitude of the city. Russ does. And on top of that, he's a very intelligent person. Leon and I were talking, and Invest in Education Academy is all about, you know, really helping people understand different ways to increase their wealth, and real estate being one of the stronger points. We normally focus on real estate, stock market, and entrepreneurship. Those are really our three pillars that we're focusing on. Leon, do you remember what we said we were gonna call that?
No, we hadn't come up with a name with it. Yeah, we're still working on structuring that, but that's gonna be, yeah, like Brent said, our three pillars: real estate, entrepreneurship, and the stock market. Yeah,
it's really important. So we always talk about stock. You all know we talk about entrepreneurship from time to time. Entrepreneurship and real estate, really being an agent, go hand in hand. So with that being said, Russ, if I missed anything, if you could fill in the gaps on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so as Brent said, I'm Russ Brown, and we met through, both of us used to do events. Both of them had a charitable aspect to them. Yours was more hands-on. Mine was more do big events, raise money. yours was actually do the event, you know, actually go into a soup kitchen and volunteer. And I tried to come into your lane a little bit. We collabed a bit on a couple of things, and I was kind of surprised when we did that, because for these events I was getting 500 people for the parties, but then I tried to get people to do what you were doing, and what I have, like 20 people show up?
No. So I remember the Action Africa event to stop genocide in Darfur over at a Coolidge High School. Yeah, that was a real fly event. We had a relay race. Some carrying eggs. It was a cool event.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, though, I'm actually from DC. I don't know if you knew that, Brent. But yeah, I've been in DC since I was 2 years old, and I've seen the whole transition from the 90s to today. As a matter of fact, down where the new wharf is right now, I went to school right across the street from there, and everybody wants to be over by the wharf now. But if you guys could have just seen that place in the 90s.
I remember that.
Yeah. I used to think I was cool because I went to school down there, and all the kids that was a neighborhood school, and I played on the basketball team. And so I knew everybody down there, and I thought I had a pass for everywhere in DC. I learned the hard way that I did not.
But you know, the thing they don't know about DC, especially anybody on Southwest was a battleground. Yeah. And so I'm from Brentwood. Actually, I'm from Montana Terrace, in between Saratoga and Montana Terrace was where I came up. I went to Bunker Hill. I went to St. Anthony's, all that. But if you went to Southwest, people think, oh, Southeast, nothing against Southeast who's watching. But if you went to Southwest, it was small, and everybody knew exactly if you should be there or not. Yeah. So like, you can get out of the car in Southwest, if you couldn't name a family member or a legitimate reason why you were there, it was a problem.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to tell you.
Not now.
I'm gonna have to tell you a story one day about how I almost got into a fight with Wayne Perry while I was down there. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I should not be alive right now. Seriously.
Hold up. Did you say Wayne Curry?
Wayne Perry. So
Oh,
I don't know if you
Perry.
heard that song by Jay-Z, this my Wayne Perry flow.
Oh,
Yeah, he was one of DC's like most notorious killers of the 90s. You know? So, yeah, I almost got into a fight with him when I was 14.
yeah, we gotta talk about that. But we're gonna talk about real estate today.
Okay.
Yeah, no violence. Yeah.
I mean, it's part of history, though. You know, it's
Nah,
real.
yeah.
I learned from that experience, and I have never tried to get into another fight again.
I mean, so
Smart
you
man.
know, a lot. I'm actually just about to do a quick post. You know, is when we got into like when we would do events, and you started to see DC, right? You go into all these venues and you're learning the city. Did you know, like somewhere in your head, like I got a little bit of a bug for real estate?
No, actually. So when we were doing those events, I had it in the back of my mind that because you know I was donating all the money I made from those events to different charitable causes around the world, mostly in Africa, and I did that from 2004 to 2008, really heavy. And then around that time, I was like, you know what, I have a passion for this, but I know this is not going to really benefit me long term. I need to probably focus a little bit more on myself. And I was trying to figure out what I could do that I would like just as much as I like doing that. And I couldn't really come up with anything. So what I did is I just worked backwards, and I said I don't want an alarm clock. I don't want a boss. I don't want a desk job. I want my own flexibility, and you know, some type of career where you know, I can make a decent amount of money, and I backed my way into real estate. And so I didn't really, I never was like, even to this day, I don't even watch, you know, those HGTV shows, but I like, so one of the things I didn't like about those events that we did is you would work, it was a once a month event that I did, and you would work so hard for that event. I mean, the whole month you're doing all these things to prepare. You have a successful night, and then the next day you starting right back over at zero, right? And you're doing the same thing over again. So basically it was a formula. You put in X amount of work, you get the result of Y, the big event. And I was like, I don't like that formula. I want something where I can put in X amount of work, and then I can leave. It'll still produce the Y, but I don't have to still keep putting that X in. I can go on to another X, and that Y will still be there. And so that's another way I kind of back my way into real estate.
So I remember your first building, like it had to have been 2001, 2002, 2003, somewhere in that space.
2010, actually. Yeah, that's when the market crashed. And so I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. Because before 2010, matter of fact, as soon as I came out of college, no, probably like 4 years after I came out of college, I was working for my parents. But my parents, they weren't making a lot of money, so they were paying me like $27,000 a year. And so the good thing about that though is that I qualify for every first-time homebuyer program, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. And I qualified for this program called HPAP, and with that program, they gave me like $20,000 down towards my house. They gave me a low interest rate, no taxes. And so my mortgage every month was $800.
Yeah.
And I rented out the other room to my boy for $750. I hope he's not watching this. But I rented out, and I did that for about 10 years. And so it was less than 10 years. But by the time the market crashed, you know, I had $100,000 saved up because I literally had no expenses. And so, so 2008 is when I first started trying to buy, and I got frustrated. I tried to buy a property, and it was a short sale. It took me a whole year, and then it collapsed at the end, and I was like heartbroken about it. And then I'm so glad it didn't work out. And then my building, it was meant for me. It came in 2010. I got a 4-unit building over in Minnesota in Benning for $125,000, and yeah, and then 4 months after that, I got a 6-unit building for $99,000. And then 3 years, like I was making like 4 times my salary with my parents. And so I wound up quitting, never went back to a job again, besides recess.
So, I know when the first property, like I think for me, I did NACA. It was a Neighborhood Assistance Corp. We actually had this conversation before, but for everybody who doesn't know, Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America was similar. Whatever prime was, you got 1% plus prime as an interest rate, regardless of what your credit looks like. You had to make under a certain threshold, but you had to also show a savings of a certain amount. So I got my first house in 2002, 2003, and I did it through the program. But one of the things I didn't think about was getting to renting it. And that's where I really felt like I missed, because I had this house, single family detached home, I didn't utilize it. And so, but I was so happy to be away from my mom. I was just like, I don't want anybody in my space. So, you had the foresight to rent the room. You started to accrue this cash. And today, going into we're going to start off talking about the real estate market in DC, right?
Okay.
It went through this incredible boom. And now we hit COVID, right? And people think, oh, the boom is over. Is it?
No, it's actually has accelerated since then. So I get that question a lot, because if you watch the news, and it could be a little bit scary if you're thinking about buying in real estate right now. You're seeing all of these jobless claims. The GDP just fell off a cliff. But I just want to make this distinction for a lot of people, all right? And so when you see those news stories, I want you to realize, this is going to sound a little bit messed up maybe, but there's always winners and losers in every situation, all right? And in this situation, the winners are still really winning. And so if you look at the unemployment rate, well, first of all, let's just look at it from a macro stance. So if you look at the news, you'll see 55 million people basically apply for unemployment insurance. So that's a really scary number. You say, okay, America is about 370 million people, 55 million people applied. But if you dig into those numbers and say, okay, 55 million applied, how many are actually receiving unemployment today? Is actually only 10.2% of people on there. And then if you back that number down even further, there's something called a core unemployment rate. So the core unemployment rate takes out everybody who's been temporarily furloughed, is not working right now, who plans on going back to work soon. Like their job said, hey, you know what? Just take a break right now. As soon as things open back up, you're coming right back here. So it takes those people out of that number of 10.2%. It also, but it adds back in people who just said, all right, forget it. I'm not going back to work at all. I'm not even applying for anything. So that number is even smaller. And so that's actually 5.7%. So, but let's go back to the bigger number, 10.2%. That is also 90% of people do have a job right now who want a job. So it's easy to look at the inverse of that. 10% don't have it. 90% do have it. But then if you break it down in terms of who doesn't have a job, it's mostly people working in the service sector, right?
Right.
And so the service sector, so in terms of the real estate market, is two distinct things. There's a residential market and then there's a commercial market, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at, they put out a big report about how many payments were missed. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of payments that were missed over the last 3 or 4 months. But they did.
When you say payments that were missed,
rent payments.
Oh, rent payments. Okay.
70% of those were from service worker industry people, right? So most people who work in the service sector, they actually rent apartments. So the commercial sector, like big apartment buildings, office spaces, those are predicted to take a tumble. So when you look at real estate market as a whole, yes, it might take some tumbles, But if you look at the residential market by itself, that's predicted to actually keep going up higher. If you look at the predictions by all of the major investment banks, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, they're actually been pretty spot on. They made predictions about what was going to happen for the second quarter, and it was pretty on target by probably like 1 or 2%. They've also been predicting what's going to happen on quarter four, and they're all predicting 4 to 5% growth. And so what that's all about is, if you look at what actually affects the price of real estate, I would argue that it is supply, demand, and the availability of lending, right? So it's a three-legged stool. So lending right now, it is taking they made it a little bit restrictive for a little while. They upped the credit score. So before you could get a loan at 640, 640. I mean, 620, but then they upped it. They say, okay, you have to have a credit score like 660, 680. But now they've even relaxed that. So the credit is flowing. So now it's just breaking down.
About that, Russ. So I know some of the banks, smaller banks, credit unions mainly, when they start issuing the PPP funds and EIDLs, some of the banks actually stopped other loans for a certain period of time. During any period, I guess in the last 4 months, have you noticed banks temporarily stopping mortgages or mortgage applications?
Certain ones. So for some reason, they really targeted jumbo loans. A certain section of jumbo loans. And for a while, it was mortgages between 515 and 685 just weren't getting cleared. If you had a house that you were trying to sell in that range, you just couldn't do it. I don't know why they picked that particular range. But in general, no, the mortgages, houses have been selling all along. The problem is actually on the supply side.
Do you think they'll allow or get back to the 620 approval numbers? Or do you think as it relates to credit score, where it is now, like 640, 660, 680 is going to be the new floor?
Nope. No, it's back to being relaxed now. They're bullish right now on the market. And for people who, I don't. So what I'm doing right now, and I want you to stop me if I'm ever saying opinions. So right now, I'm just saying just the facts. So if you look at what was happening during that period, I mean, what happened throughout this year. So the coronavirus hit in China first, right?
Right.
After that, Europe, then it came to us, right? So everything that's been happening has kind of been in a circular loop. They experienced it first, Europe experiences it second, we experienced it third. We're experiencing it way worse than them, but it's been we can look to the next country to see, okay, what happens next, right? Mm-hmm. So in China, if you look at what their housing market has done, because they've controlled it a lot better than us, I believe that we eventually will get to the point where we can control this. So if you look at what happened with China, their market is on fire right now. Matter of fact, their government is doing everything they can to try to soften the economy. They're restricting lending. If you're not a Chinese bank, they're trying to restrict you from making any loans. They want to control that because it's heating up too fast. They're making a comeback as well. They're not as fast as China, and of course, it's different economies all throughout Europe. But if you look at all of them are basically trending up right now. We're actually trending up while we're I would argue, still in the heart of the epidemic. So you could just imagine what's going to happen once things really kind of settle down here.
So in the stock market.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just quick question. So you said Goldman Sachs and a lot of the big banks had estimates that they pretty much hit. What were those based on? Because with the pandemic, I know everything's an estimate, everything's based on using past data to try to predict the future. But with the pandemic, that just skewed everything, right? So all the models that they had before, I'm sure weren't in line with kind of what they were in the past. So one, how are they able to actually hit those targets? And two, what in their models is saying that demand is, or that supply, I don't know, either demand is high or supply is low, or maybe both. What's driving the increase in price and the increase in, I guess, in demand to push prices up in the middle of a pandemic? Like, what is driving this huge uptick in real estate prices?
Right. So I can't to what their methodology was in terms of coming up with the numbers. I don't really know that, but I can answer the second question. So what has happened is there's a few things that's happened. So regulation has helped a lot. I know a lot of people don't like regulation. Certain people don't like regulation, but if you look at the last housing market, when the crash of 2009, right? 2008, 2009, there was hardly any regulation going on. So people were just taking their money out of their houses left and right, just taking all the equity out. So everybody was kind of like right on the edge, right? It was 800, the 3 years leading up to the 2009 crash, $824 billion was taken out in terms of equity out of their homes, right? So everybody was right there at the edge. Nobody had extra equity in their house or anything like that. So when things started getting rocky, they had those adjustable interest rates, and they were doing foreclosures freely back then. Everybody was right there at the edge, and as things started teetering, people just started losing it, left, just like that. If you look at the 3 years leading up to this pandemic, this recession, because of regulation, there was only $232 billion have been taken out of people's equity. So a lot of people have a lot more equity. Matter of fact, you'll be surprised to hear this stat. I would say over 45% of Americans have more than 50% equity in their house. So and if you look at the historical average of how much money people's monthly payments go towards their mortgage, it's about 21%. Today it's only 14. It's an all-time low. So people are in much, much better positions right now to weather these storms, right? So if you look at the reasons why there will be an influx of supply, it's either going to be people who are forced to sell, and obviously because of those stats I just mentioned, a lot of people aren't in that position where, they can't make that 14% of their income anymore, right? So those people are kind of like taken out of the equation almost, right? And then the second group are people who just say, okay, you know what, it's time to upgrade. I want to move to somewhere else. So those people, they might come to the conclusion, do I really want somebody coming to my house right now, with COVID? Do I really want to have movers? Do I want to? And they're taking the option is, okay, I'm gonna wait and see what happens, So we were already low on the supply level before COVID happened. And this actually took the supply level from a low position to an even lower position. So in order for prices to go down, that would mean the demand side would also have to come down. But if you think about on the demand side, there's a bunch of factors with that. Most people looking to buy know that this is a 30-year transaction, right? It's a long-term transaction. And when COVID first happened, I bet you guys probably thought this too. Oh, we're gonna have to hunker down for a couple of months and then we'll be all right, right?
Right, of course, yeah, everyone thought that, yeah.
Exactly. And so with that mindset, are you really gonna say, okay, I'm not gonna buy a house right now because of something that's going on for the next couple of months in your mind? No, you're still gonna go for it. So then you come back to the question of, can you still buy a house? Interest rates are at all-time low. So this stat right here is probably going to be the most explanatory stat that I'm gonna give you. And if you don't remember anything else, just remember this. If you take the same payment on a house in June 2019, and then you go to June 2020, because interest rates are so low, you can get $32,000 more of a house than you could the year before. Same exact payment.
It's been a market mover. Like I've talked to a lot of people, and again, from the investment side, there have been a lot of people like, you know what, I need to go now while the rates are at this level. But you're talking about supply demand curve shift, right? Yep. And so demand stayed high, supply went low, which actually means prices go up. Exactly. And in that space, now you're paying a premium which makes sense. I mean, I've had neighbors who have sold the house over market and bidding wars. Today, literally, I have a fraternity brother in Mozambique who owns a property off Central Avenue. It sold for $97,000 over the price in 10 days.
I believe it.
And I was like, it's real. I mean, I'm seeing it happen, but I do know there are people watching who thought, oh, there's no market right now. Nobody's buying, nobody's selling. And it's not true, which is why we wanted to talk to you about it. So in your business right now, and I know you have agents and I know your business is growing, are you more so on the sell side or the buy side?
Lately, I've been more on the sell side, which is a great position to be right now. So if you have a property, because supply is so low, you're going to be in demand.
Wait, Russ.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you. So if people want to sell their property with you, because we have a lot of people watching right now, so how can they sell a property with you? How can they get in contact with you?
Oh, well, yes. You can reach me at Russ at RFB List. That's Russ Foster Brown List, like grocery list.com. Yeah, or just, any you can contact Brent. I'm sure Brent will throw me the alley-oop like he did back in when we used to play ball. So yeah, they can reach me. I'm definitely open for business. I'm working with a couple of sellers right now. I know a couple of my buyers are actually on here right now, because I think the reason why you actually asked me on the show is because I posted last week about one of my clients, Lisa Raposa, who's on here, and she actually had a closing at the house and had a birthday party and housewarming all at the same time in the backyard. That was pretty cool.
No, actually is exactly why. And it's going to lead us into the second half of this. And for anybody who's looking for Russ's information, it's on all of the flyers posted, both sites that you can reach him at. But as we said,
yes.
Yeah, congratulations. But also, if you do contact me, I will, in fact, get you in touch with Russ. And the reason why we talked about this today, we're going to keep talking about it, but we're going to switch over to our membership site and also our podcast. But right now, Investing Education Academy, we've recently been actually accepted by Amazon, our podcast, to be listed on their up and coming test platform, which is awesome. And we've been getting a couple thousand people watching these on a regular basis. So I wanted to start having quality people on doing these pop-ups, because people think the economy's dead. And people think, oh, well, I have to wait until then, because they're in the wrong circles. And, me, Leon, we've been blessed, you, Russ, we've been blessed to be in a community where we've never had anything but positivity between us. Even when we decided not to do work together, it was a positive decision,
Yep.
And like every time we get back together, it's starting from point zero, and we're good. But so many people don't have this. And so when they're looking like, how do we move? We want to be able to direct them to somebody not only can get them to move, but also can bring it in a fashion that's based on intelligence. And I mean, we've been friends for a long time, but you've even surprised me on this live statistically on how you describe the market versus some people going, well, it's a great neighborhood. It's like, there's a dog park right over there. It's like you actually explain why the economy is still moving, why people are spending money, why the supply and demand curve has shifted, and what that shift has meant for buyers. We talked about interest rates. We're going to dive in right now to exactly what you talked about. We're going to go off the live. We're going into our membership platform. I think some people do have the link to this. If anybody wants to jump back onto this Zoom that has the link, feel free. We just ask that you mute yourself and, during the conversation, because we're going to keep going. But Russ, before we go off of the live side, can you, again, just give your information for people? And also, if you can explain what your preferred customer looks like, that'll save you some time.
Actually, my preferred customer is somebody who's very open-minded to thinking out the box a little bit. So what I like to do when I work with a customer is find out what's their main priority. Is it to build equity and financial wealth, or is it just to be comfortable? And if they tell me that it's to build equity and financial wealth, I am 120% the right person for them to work with for that, because what I try to teach them is that if you look at a house, each each bedroom, I don't want you to look at it as a bedroom. I want you to look at it as a business, a potential business, if you ever need it to be. Because you can rent out each one of those rooms in DC for a premium.
Did we just lose Russ?
No, I'm not sure, but while he's talking about the premium, I can tell you, like if he years ago rented a room for $750 when his mortgage was only 8 something, that's a bit. And so
the biggest takeaway I had from what he said, though, to me, what stunned me was that I think he said over 50% of people that currently have homes have equity. So and it sounds like they have sizable equity. So it's like, yeah, no one that's why people are selling the homes for such high prices, because they have the equity. There's no need for them to sell. They're not, like he said in the past, where everyone had taken out the equity and they're right on that edge. So that answered the big question to me was why is it such a seller's market? That answered that question because everyone has this built up equity. Only 200 billion has been taken out versus 800 billion back in 08, 09. So that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I think the big reason why people are moving from what Russ shared with us was the fact that they're talking about what you qualify for in June 2019 is now in June 2020, $32,000 more.
Yep.
That's huge.
That's huge.
So
right.
If you can buy, because I know even when I was buying, and I remember when Russ was buying, going through those programs, you wanted to qualify for as much money as possible, because when you made that purchase, you wanted to make a one-time purchase, for that program, because it was such a great program. You tried to get your biggest bang for your buck. But the reality is everybody's trying to do that when they buy their house. They're trying to go biggest bang with the buck. And also, if I'm paying the same mortgage, but I can get $32,000 more of a house, that's a bigger yard, that's a location that near whatever I want. For some people, that's the difference between, just settling for it and getting what you want. So I've seen it. I mean, I have clients all over the place. They're selling for exactly what they want to sell for, and they're getting bidding wars in some of these situations.
Right, like you said, your friend just had to go over by almost $100,000. So
yeah, they had to, and
it's back.
Yeah, and so Russ, we were just talking about the points you hit on and why the market is what it is right now, and then also looking at your house. When you said years ago when you had your house and you had a roommate, then alone you're talking about a person's only paying like $100 for mortgage. And so when you do look at a house, especially in DC, I mean, you have a basement unit going for over $2,000 a month. And so, when you look at each room from that standpoint, it makes sense that, you say if a person's looking for equity and they're looking for, a nice house, that you're exactly the person. So what other qualifiers exist for a person want to work with you, qualify to work with you?
Yeah, so some people don't. I'm glad you asked this, because this is one of the things I really wanted to stress, because a lot of people don't know what I'm about to tell you. So to answer that question, but to jump off of that, somebody who is willing to put in the work, because almost if you're in DC or you want to buy in the DC area, there's almost no obstacles for you to actually buy a house right now. So one of the obstacles that people think that they can't buy a house is their credit is really bad. There are lenders out there that will work with you and show you actually every step that you need to do in order to get your credit up. Then a lot of people think they can't buy a house because they don't have a down payment saved up. There's a program, there are first-time home buyer programs, which is another reason the housing market is so high in DC as well, is because there are so many first-time home buyer programs right here where you would not believe how much money they will give you in order to purchase your house. They have this one program called HPAP, where they will give you up to $80,000 towards the purchase of your home, plus another $4,000 towards your down payment. You can put that in conjunction with another program. If you're a DC government worker, they got a program called EHAP program, where that's another $20,000 that they will give you to purchase your house. So that's almost $100,000, and an EHAP program will give you $5,000 towards your down payment. So that's $9,000. So
don't forget the teachers and police officers.
Right, exactly. Yeah, anybody who works DC government. So I have a client right now. She makes about $27,000 a year. She's a teacher's aide, and she's able to buy. she's able to, am I still there?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, she's able to buy a house at $280,000, which, you know, and her mortgage is stupid low. It's like $700. Because I mean, she added all these programs together. And so if you're not participating or even doing your research and learning about these programs, if you're a DC resident or you pay tax, any type of taxes in DC, you're essentially paying for somebody else's house right now. They're using your money to go into these programs, and people are taking advantage of this and getting these either zero interest rate loans or completely forgivable loans that people don't even know about. So if you come into this industry, if you want to work with me, if you're open-minded, I would just like to. I love showing people who don't know about this, because they're like, I don't think I can afford a house in DC. And then when I show them all these programs, the low interest rate, the assistance in the down payment, and the payments towards your house, like they're shocked. So so to answer your question, anybody with open mind, that's the type of client I'm looking for.
All right. And so what if they're not in DC?
So in Maryland, they also have first-time home buyer programs too. They have the MMP program, which is a down payment assistance program. So I mean, there's opportunities everywhere. DC is just the best, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, so I actually went through the program in DC for a house that was directly outside the Beltway. So I ended up in Cheverly, which is
which is the new Tacoma Park, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it was a great space, and I could walk to the metro. They gave me $25,000 towards construction, and because again we are who we are, I found a clause in there that said if you actually did home construction work, it was considered an inconvenience, and they lowered your mortgage about 0.5%.
Nice.
So they gave me $25,000, and then they lowered my mortgage. It made no sense. Like all my friends.
Hey Russ.
Yes.
Quick question. So what about Virginia? What about people in Virginia? I know you said Maryland, DC. You touched on those. What about VA?
Virginia is not as gracious with their first-time home buyer programs. You know, they a little. Yeah, Maryland and DC mainly are the ones that have the great programs.
So you can't work.
Do you do work with people in Virginia?
Yeah, I do actually. Faseo, who I worked with, you guys know who I worked with a lot. He just bought a huge crib in Vienna. I was agent on that. Yeah, that was a good house.
Cool. So again, it was a lot of people that just joined us, and one of the questions came in, like if a person's an agent and they want to work with you.
If they're an agent and they want to work with me, reach out to me. I'm actually looking for buyer's agents right now. So definitely feel free to give them my information, or again, it's russ@rfblists.com.
All right. So with that being said, we're about to flip over to the member and the podcast platform. We're really glad you all stuck in with us, and from the comments and everybody checking in, it's a lot of people watching and interested in this information. So we're glad we're able to bring it to you. And then to plug us, if you're interested in joining Invest in Education Academy, you can go to IEAmembers.com. And I mean, it's that time where we have to understand, and I'm gonna talk about Black wealth for a second. And we have to start understanding how to narrow the gap of Black America's wealth and white America's wealth. It's not a blame game, but it's a reality that the gap is vast. And you're talking about, people who are just now reaching white wealth as it was in 1962. And home ownership absolutely is one of the ways to narrow the gap. And of course, we huge stock market people, but it's important that we just start having these conversations. They're not abnormal. We're not talking about, oh, you did this, like you stunting on. No, it's just, no, these are things that you can do. These are programs that exist. This is a great individual that can get you there. And we're trying to bring you quality people, because we know not only do they have intelligence, but they care. And that's also a differentiator. There's some people that don't care. They're probably gonna put you in a crappy house just to get a commission.
And just touch on that point Brent made, and it's on one of our earlier podcasts, but we actually did the research and found out, as Brent said, that Black America right now is 60 years behind white America as far as wealth. But one thing that we found, and we found absolutely stunning, was that white America on average earns 139% more on their money than does Black America. So we've dubbed that the ROI gap. And that's one of the things we're really trying to close. We're trying to narrow. I said it right, Brent. We're trying to narrow that ROI gap because I mean, as Brent said, it's utterly ridiculous that we're 60 years behind on wealth, and we're earning 139% less on our money than white America. So things we got to do about it. That's what we're here doing at IEA, and definitely on this podcast, bring it people like Russ on.
That's interesting. The 60 years is the number, because that's around the time when they finally stopped redlining, which is when basically telling people, Black people, that they couldn't get mortgages in certain neighborhoods. They were basically restricting the African American community from even getting mortgages. And as you said, the real estate market, people's homes are the number one way. If you look at the average over the country, the number one way of building wealth is through your home. Also, one more point I wanted to throw in. You asked about other agents who might want to again cut touch with me. I would like to say, if you like the data that I've kind of been telling you guys about, the reason I know that data is because my broker, man, she's the most amazing broker I've ever worked with. I mean, she basically pays a buttload of money to get these analysts to basically send us market research every week. And so, and it's 100% brokerage too. So you get to keep all your money. Most brokerages take 30% of whatever the agents make. But Realty One Group, it's an amazing brokerage.
No, it's people now saying, I've been searching to become an agent. I'm so glad for this meeting. One person asked, well, what if keep it 100. So that's Brandon, Brandon Felton.
Oh yeah.
And then one person asked, what if you're not a first-time home buyer? Can you still work with them?
Oh yeah, for sure. I like I said, only thing I require is a positive attitude, man, and I'll get you through the finish line.
All right. Well, look, everybody, it's been great. We're about to switch over to then the private side, if you will. But if you want to find this information, it's going to be on our podcast. If you're interested in joining IEA, it's IEAmembers.com. And Leon and I, one of the things we did was, with our platform, we wanted to make it available to as many people as possible who were serious about really learning about wealth. So our lowest platform is $36 for the entire year. And we're doing meetings like this. We have an Ask an Expert. Last weekend, we had a estate planning attorney. It's $36 for the entire year. So that's our lowest package. It actually changes on Wednesday. The price is going up. But we wanted to at least say we made an effort for anybody who wanted to learn more about wealth and have conversations like this not be abnormal. Like, that's really the biggest thing. This should not be an abnormal conversation. This should be regular talk. And so we're going to get there, and we're going to start bringing people into our ecosystem that can get us there. And for us, it's no deal for us to get a piece of anybody that goes and works with him. We don't want it. We want you all to get a good agent who's going to represent you well, and it's going to, watch him grow. As you grow, equity grows in your house. We're doing what our mission is. We're narrowing that wealth gap. So everybody, thank you. We're about to switch over. Russ, stick with us, and we will see you all next Wednesday, or this coming Wednesday. And everybody here can stay here. I just ask that you stay muted as well.